Hi, my name is Moritz von Grottus and I'm the CEO and founder of Bareways. In this session, I'd like to give you a brief overview about some of the data that we use for our routing and mapping services, as well as other data services on a global scale. The basis for us is always OpenStreetMap. OpenStreetMap provides on a global scale a network and a map of pretty much all and any kind of roads and tracks for that vehicles could take. And it really goes down to small field tracks and wood tracks that vehicles, from a bicycle to a car to a logistic company, might be able to use. The fun thing about OpenStreetMap is that as it's a crowd-based database, a lot of rural areas are much better covered than the standard mapping services that we know and that more established, because it's sufficient if one or two people in a region enjoy the community-based approach of OpenStreetMap and map the region. Then we add weather to it. We currently use two weather sources, the Deutsche Wetterdienst as well as MeteoBlue. We get extremely precise weather in entire Europe, and going down to 1 kilometer to 1 by 1 kilometer per tile, but as well get global weather with a less bit level of detail in that area. And weather means for us not only the temperature, it also means rain intensity, snow intensity, how much rain or snow has fallen during the last weeks, fog, temperature on the ground as well as temperature 2 meters above, and so on and so on. So it's really a buckload of different data points. Having said that, this doesn't always matter for mobility. We're looking at, or Bareways is focusing on mobility experiences and location-based services for mobility. So we usually don't really care while driving a car if it's cloudy or sunny. What we do care for is does it rain, does it snow, is it snow, do we have fog? Of course, we can take sunshine into account for a routing decision if we, for example, take a convertible and say we want to look for sunshine. But in most cases, the information about, oh, it's raining here, we have light rain showers north of Berlin, or light rain in the Netherlands. Let's see, what else do we have? Here on Iceland, we have foggy areas. This is relevant for people driving because it impacts mobility. So these weather situations are the more focused way of looking at weather than just all the different data points. Having said that, we also look at historic weather, being able to correlate weather situations with other data that we get from roads, and which is mobility relevant. Then we use automated APIs, for example, in this case, regarding accidents. The German police provides a big database of when has an accident happened in the past. For example, in this small village, we don't show now date and time, but that's available, this data. In a small village, we had an accident, most likely that was a pedestrian or a vehicle versus vehicle. But if we look at this accident that happened, somewhere in the middle of nowhere between forest and fields, most likely that was an animal crossing. And then we can look at the data. We can say, okay, at what time of the year, which season, what time of the day was it? And it's not about warning anyone who drives this road that you will have an animal crossing right now, but it's about making people more aware, or making the vehicle and this vehicle sensors more aware. Be careful, you could meet this or that risk. We use, on a global scale, a digital elevation model. So we know the height of a road, we know the elevation going uphill, going downhill, on a very detailed manner. We can, of course, visualize that too. Then we add, what kind of vegetation are we looking at? So what kind of vegetation is on the right and the left-hand side of the road? This is, of course, relevant because, for example, if I had a winter storm and I was close to forest where with leaves, it could be slippery. Less slippery if it was a forest with needles, a needle forest. We get data, for example, where's grassland. We know where there are rocks. We know where's what water. We also know where swamps and wetlands. So if it rains somewhere and we know there's a road directly next to wetlands, we can predict if there is a flooding. Then we use road surface classification. The core data is something that we take from OpenStreetMaps. A number of roads, roughly 10% globally, have been tagged by the crowdsourced approach of OpenStreetMaps. And what we then do is we have patents partially already granted, where we cut roads into segments, straighten them into a line to make them comparable, and then take right and the left-hand side of a road, I think 8 meters also, into account to compare roads. So if, for example, in this area of Phoenix, Arizona, we know that how a road looks, and we know what is on right and left-hand side, we can estimate that using satellite data, we can estimate and predict how would a road that looks comparable on satellite data, what kind of surface would it have in Mexico? And the same we could do from southern Sweden to Estonia and Russia. So from areas where we get a lot of data, we can use satellite and pattern recognition approaches to estimate and predict the road surfaces in areas with less data. Then we use not only satellite, but we also use other high resolution data. For example, in this case, it's from the NAIP, the US National Agricultural Program, that gives every 1.5 to 2 years very good high definition data of the entire US. And one thing you see very nicely here is the white picture, white element, is the true position of a house at the Grand Canyon Skywalk. The lighter one, the RGB, is then where the drone saw it. And you always have, well, if a drone flies somewhere, it doesn't always look straight down and can exactly locate where a house or a road is, but it looks sideways. And due to the angle, there is the true position and the picture don't always meet. So we need to take that into account and look at these data. Now just an example of what can we do with that. Well, this is a simple route between the Czech Republic and Polonia, crossing the Riesengebirge some weeks ago when we still had snow. This is the route any normal standard navigation tool would give you. It's the direct route, it crosses the mountains, and is totally okay. Well, maybe you have more time, you have a sports car or a Jeep, you have winter tires, and say, okay, let's spend some more time and take an adventurous road around. So you get that too. But it just as well could be that you say, well, I need to get from one place to another, but I have summer tires on my vehicle, or need to go by night and I'm not sure how the weather's going to be. So yeah, very easy. Include that in your routing decision, and you get routed around snow. Well, we could just as well pick route only through sunshine, or avoid rain, avoid heavy wind, whatever kind of topic, point of interest, region of interest, or situation you want to avoid or you are looking for, we can include it in our routing tools. Connectivity is a huge topic. When do we need to predictively download data so you can get from one place with data connection to the other place with data connection without losing relevant knowledge? Just as well, we use infrastructure maps, so especially with charging infrastructure, but it can be also normal gasoline infrastructure. Where can I repower my vehicle? And especially in rural areas where the electric charging infrastructure is still scarce, this can be extremely important data. Then we use worldwide travel advices, use different sources for that. In this case, still due to Corona, we have a lot of, well, pretty much everything is red. But for example, in Germany, we also use other risk and public warning information. For example, in this case, this is a region where we had floodings, I think 6 weeks ago. Again, warnings, we know, do we want to, are we still willing to go through such an area, or do we want to simply avoid it? For example, if a logistic company says, I need to get from one place to another under all circumstances, and it's okay to take a rerouting of maybe 3 or 4 hours, but therefore avoid the risk of getting stuck. We use other data sources too, global landslide catalog. We know where have been landslides. We can correlate that with weather, so we can look at which situation, well, has it maybe raining for the last 4 weeks and is really steep. And again, it could be about warning and risk estimations on things. And then we use, if available, for example, webcams, not to recognize and to identify how a situation could be, but to verify our predictions in that region. And this is now really live data that we get in Iceland. Well, that was a brief demo of some of the data points we use for our services. In total, at least only in Europe, we have more than 70 different APIs automatically connected to our database. We pick up and collect as much data as possible. We calibrate it in regard of time and regard of location, and then use this data for highly customized mobility services, especially routing and navigation, focusing on the user, as well as the vehicle capabilities, as well as the real-time data and conditions one will meet. Thank you very much. My name is Moritz van Grothuus. I'm the CEO of Bareways.